Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Shootin The Breeze Podcast. I am your host, Pierre Andre, and that sounds good. Let me just stop the formality there. Again, let's try this again. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Shootin The Breeze Podcast. I am your host, Pierre Andre, and I would like to thank each and every one of you all for tuning in and listening to whatever it is that I have to say. It means the world to me that I have your undivided attention and that you find reason to tune in to Shootin The Breeze Podcast. This is our very first episode. Yes, very first. So welcome. And we will be talking about why I started this podcast. What's the reason of this podcast? What will Shootin The Breeze be about? What to expect and who to expect. As we getting started with Shootin The Breeze Podcast, I do have high hopes for this series. And again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you all who are tuning in and going on with the journey of this podcast. But first, let me introduce myself. Again, I am your host, your entertainer, your photographer. I am Pierre Andre. I'm a photographer based out of Kansas City. I'm a natural light photographer, even though I have nothing against flash photography, as I am as well, even trying to learn and better myself with flash photography. I believe it takes my skills and my craft to another level, and just to be able to offer that service to potential clients or the photography world. Because that's all we need is just another photographer, right? But anywho, like I said, I am a natural light. I love natural light. I just feel like not the fact that I perfected it, because I'm still learning each and every day, just like you all. But I just love it. It gives the chance for the model to be more natural and not just be staying in one spot with the flash photography. We can open up to different action shots and so forth. But again, I could be completely wrong and probably am wrong. But I am a natural light photographer that is looking to gain more experience with flash photography. And that's where you can join in and help me, because that's what this podcast is about. All about helping each other. I have been doing photography since about 2010. That's probably when I picked up the first camera, but I did give it up a few years, sold all of my equipment. I believe I started off shooting on like a little cheap Sony camera. I mean, one of those cameras that you just get just to get. And I remember shooting on that. It was actually my brother's. But anywho, and then I went to Nikon. I can't remember the camera because it's been that long. 2010, like I said, and then I ended up selling it because I just wasn't really into it. I didn't find passion in it at that time. So I gave it up for a few years, and then I picked it up in around 2016. And since then, I've been taking it more serious, studying, perfecting the craft, the whole 9 yards. I've just been watching YouTube, collabing with different photographers and models and coming up with different content and just really having fun with it and learning and understanding the reason I'm a photographer. And yes, like any other photographer, I do have slumps when I do not feel creative. To where I just don't want to do it. To where it's times where I just want to sell everything. My whole gear bag, I just want to sell it because I can't be creative. I can't collab with anyone, or I'm too busy doing nothing, as the old folks will say. But whenever I feel like that, I just really go back to some of my old work. I start re-editing some pictures. I start just looking at my catalog and some reviews, different reviews that clients may have wrote me. And I just snap out of it and I just start snapping again. And I just start shooting. And I just keep grinding. I just keep shooting. And that's just how I get out of those slumps. And they come periodically. It's not just I have one and they get away. and they go away. They come back consistently. But that's where I just have to be strong. You have to be strong and keep shooting, because it's going to be times to where you don't feel creative. It's going to be times to where you can't, business isn't picking up, because ultimately that's what we all want to do, is be a full-time photographer, right? Who wants to wake up and work a 9 to 5 and work a whole hour just to receive $17 an hour minimum? So nobody wants to do that. So if you can wake up and do what you love to do, which is photography or whatever it is that you might want, that you love to do, that's awesome, right? So that's ultimately the goal for everyone, I believe. And I'm rooting for you. I'm shooting for you. I hope that happens. There's enough money in the world. There's enough people in the world it can be a thousands of photographers in my circle. It doesn't matter, because there's too much money out here and it's too many different ideas. You might have an idea that I never thought of, and vice versa. So I just encourage you to keep shooting whenever those slumps come, and reach out to other photographers or reach out to different models or some other models that you did work with and see what you can come up with. Because I still struggle every day with that. And it's okay. It's going to happen. And one of the main reasons why I picked up photography is because I love that moment. I love capturing that moment. I love bringing out the beauty and the confidence that people may or may not have. That's why I enjoy doing photography. I can see something that a lot of people may or may not see. And when I was younger, I was bullied. I was picked on, talked about, called fat, beat up, like literally beat up on my way from school, and called me names and fat, beat me up, all of that, everything. They did all of that. So as I got older, and to be honest, I still have my insecurities, and I don't want for anyone to feel the way I felt at that time in my life. I believe pictures go a long way. I mean, I just moved, and we were going through so many pictures of childhoods, like of our childhood memories, and when we were kids, and as we were growing up, and we just got pictures galore. This is before cameras, and everything is on our iPhones or Androids or hard drives. This is pictures in our hands, and that just goes to show, that was in the 90s. And and we still have them. So pictures go a long way, and when you look at those pictures, you just see memories, and all these memories come back to mind, and how I felt that day, and I remember that outfit, I remember that time, and that's what pictures, are for. And for me to be on the opposite side of that lens, capturing that moment for yourself and your family, and for you, and inspiring models and family portraits and weddings and events and birthday parties and everything, just to capture it. It's amazing, because again, I don't want anyone to feel how I felt at that time of my life. It was a very dark moment, and I was a teenager and even younger. So everybody else that's going through this stuff, being bullied, you are someone, you are beautiful in your own way, inside and out. So with me, the older I got, I was trying to find purpose in my life, and still trying to find purpose. I don't want anyone to feel that I have everything lined up and everything is perfect in my life, because it's not. So I don't care if you're white, black, brown, or yellow. I want you to feel and see the beauty in yourself. You deserve it. We all deserve it. Right? Okay. So enough of that sob story. Not even a sob story, but enough of that sad story. You can stop the violins now. Okay. And I'm talking to myself, because I am the engineer, the producer, the host, Pierre Andre. So what is in my camera bag? I am a Canon shooter. Yes. I told you I started off with Sony, and I wasn't even taking it serious. Started off with Nikon, didn't take it serious. Sold all of that gear. And now I am a Canon shooter. So Canon, if you are listening and you need someone to send gear to, this is my sell pitch. I am Pierre Andre, and I am hosting the podcast Shootin The Breeze. based out of Kansas City, who is an up-and-coming photographer, and you want someone to invest in, you want someone to try out gear and all of that, I am your person. So I am a Canon shooter. I love Canon. I am loyal to Canon for whatever reason. I have no idea. So many YouTubers and photographers I know that shoot Sony and says Sony is the best. And it's not. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it's not right for me. I am a Canon shooter. Again, Canon. Reach out to me. My primary body I shoot with is the Canon R5. Yes, the Canon R5 was a nice penny. But my backup bodies, I have the Canon 6D Mark II, which was honestly my first professional, I guess, and I put air quotes in. My very first professional camera with the Canon 6D Mark II. And yeah, I got that a few years after 2016 and started snapping with that and perfecting that camera. But my first camera when I started back with 2016 was the Canon 80D, which I hardly used, but I keep it more of a sentimental reason, because it was my first camera getting back into it. And I always want to go back and be able to look at that camera and say, hey, this is where I started, regardless if I'm shooting with the R5 or saving up for the R3, or as Canon advances their technology and I continue to stay with Canon and purchase their equipment, I will always keep that Canon 80D because that's my first camera, right? I know I'm not the only one out there that does that. And if I am, I guess I need to seek counseling. But my lenses that I use is the Canon RF 15-35 f2.8. And I have this lens in my bag because I do events. I'm not a big fan as far as events outside of weddings, but I got it for events in those small areas. And I also got it for my street photography and landscapes that I do, which you can plug time, which you can check out at sunshineeventskc.com, where I sell prints and of the city of Kansas City. And as I travel to your cities, I will be capturing different long exposures, buildings and downtown and street photography. So that's what I pretty much use that lens for, is the landscaping of it, the street photography. And if I got to pull it out because I'm in a tight area at a location, I don't really use that for portraits or anything. For my portraits, I use the Nifty 50. Funny story about that. But I use the RF mount, which is the 50mm f1.8. So again, told you I had the Canon 6D. I had the Canon 50mm f1.2, the 85mm f.4, I believe. And I was, I'm about to go all in on mirrorless lenses. I'm going to sell it. Sold it. And instantly regretted it. So yes, if you are that person like me and you are proactive, slow it down. You do not want to sell your lens until you are ready. That's just a word of advice for you all. But yes, the Nifty 50, which surprised me deeply. I bought this lens because I needed a 50mm at the time. I believe I was doing some product photography, and I believe I had a 70-200, but I was in a closed space, and the 15-35 for me, and it could have been user error, but the 15-35 wasn't like popping. It wasn't sharp enough for me. It wasn't giving it that look that I wanted. And again, it could have been user error. So I went and bought the Nifty 50. And honestly, that is one of the lenses I do not take off my camera. I am consistently shooting it with portraits, which is mainly based off my photography, the portrait session of it. It stays on there. The bokeh was just beautiful. Anybody who has this lens know, and I'm not knocking the f1.2, but if you don't have $3,000 for that RF mirrorless lens, I do recommend that 50mm f1.8. The bokeh is nice. It's nice and sharp. And there's nothing wrong with even using the EF mount if that's what you have with the adapter. And I'm just talking about mirrorless. But that 50mm, it's the depth of field in that is really, really nice. And like I said, the bokeh behind it, and yeah, it's really nice. I'm not even gonna lie. So the same funny story with the 85mm. I sold it. That was my beast. That was my favorite lens. And I sold it because, I'm about to go mirrorless. I'm going to go to 28-70, which f2, which is expensive, which is probably our mortgage and some. So, and I was going to sell it, and then I sold it, and then, you know how unexpected bills come, and so end up buying a lens that I'm getting ready to introduce, which a lot of people may know about it. It's the 85mm f1.8. It's the Veltrox lens, and I only paid $400 for this lens. And when I say this lens is literally, and it's a mirrorless mount, so it's the RF mount, that this lens is my favorite lens. My goodness, the bokeh is just so smooth. It's sharp. It brings it. The pictures just literally pop. I mean, it's amazing. I definitely recommend this lens. If you are shooting mirrorless Canon and you cannot afford that $3,000 lens, yes, go to the third parties, go to the Sigmas, go to the Tamrons, but the Veltrox, and I may be messing that name up, but it's okay. But you know what I'm looking at. Search it. Viltrox 85mm f1.8. $400. Best $400 I've ever spent. And then last is the Sigma 70-200mm f2.8. And I got this lens because of weddings and the portraits of it, that compression that it brings. And one of the reasons why I got that lens. That way, because I'm more of a prime lens shooter. And the zoom, never been a big fan of zoom. But with this lens, it's nice. It's a tank. You have to have some muscles for that lens with the adapter and the battery grip and everything. It weighs a lot. I don't know the weight now, but I will definitely give it to you as we continue to go with Shootin The Breeze Podcast. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk more about gear and stuff like that. But email me. What's in your gear bag? So send me your gear list. What do you shoot with? What is your camera? Why do you shoot with what you shoot with? What's the reason behind your photography story? I want to hear your stories, and I would love to talk about them if you send consent. And then talk to them about the podcast, talk to them, telling your reason, get your voice heard. Why do you shoot? And that's what it's about. This is why I started it. This is why I started Shootin The Breeze Podcast. And I'll tell you about how I came up with the name. So we were at the hospital, me and my wife. My son was having surgery. And I was just sitting there trying to buy time, watching YouTube and trying to find podcasts to listen to just about the photography world, and really found nothing. Or if I did find it, it was experienced people. It was people with thousands of followers and, the whole 9 yards, a bunch of gear, that high-tech equipment, fancy lighting, hundreds and thousands of followers and subscribers and all of that stuff. And, it was people that was already established. And it honestly intimidated me, even though sometimes they encourage me and give me inspiration. It also gets intimidating. And there's no shots fired, but I feel at sometimes that they may forget that they were once in my shoes and our shoes, right? We all, like I said, we all seek to have this as a full-time job, regardless if it's whatever it is that you are passionate about. And one thing about me is this: I love to help people. I will give my last to help someone, and it's a blessing and a curse. But I feel that we're here for a purpose, and the knowledge we have, we're not supposed to keep to ourselves. That's just my belief. I believe that we are supposed to expand knowledge and, help people who need help or want help. That's what I feel. But anywho, we would sit in the waiting room, and I was just, couldn't find anything to listen to, couldn't find anything to watch because, and maybe that was one of my times where I was having those slump moments. And I was expressing it to my wife and saying like, hey man, I think I want to start something. I know I want to do the YouTube content, and if you can do that full time, great. But I know that's something I wanted to start it, but I'm like, oh, my office isn't ready. I have nowhere to shoot. I have, poor lighting. This is before we moved, and so I was going to wait on that. But I wanted to get my voice out, and you can write a blog. You can tell a story on Instagram, but it discourages you when you get 2 likes. I'm not the only one. So I wanted to do something different. And I started, elaborating with her and saying like, hey, I want to start this podcast. So instantly we literally started thinking of names, and can't think of some of the names that didn't make the cut, obviously. But my wife was just like, Shootin The Breeze. And instantly I adapted to it, and I started thinking of a logo, and I was like, okay, I can be me shooting the camera, because a lot of times that's the old saying, and you're just talking and shooting the breeze. I'm just shooting the breeze, right? You're just talking. And that's what it's all about. We're just going to talk about any and everything. So that's where the name came from. It was in an emergency waiting room, and that name came about. So shout out to her. And then I started thinking about the logo. I was like, okay, it can be me. I want the avatar look, that cartoon look, and me holding the camera with the wind blowing. I got super excited all about it. And this was, around March or April, maybe, we came up with this name. And look, it's August? So you can go to see how long it took to kind of get motivated and just to start it and just go, and like I said, this is our first episode. So you're going to hear a lot of ums, and you know what I'm saying. And so just bear with me. So sorry, I guess, right? Don't be mad for the English majors out there. Don't be mad at me. I'm still learning, and we'll get better with points, but I want it to be raw, But anyway, the reason behind it is because I wanted to give back to the community, the photography world, because I'm up and coming. I don't know everything. I'm still learning. So that's where I want to reach out to other photographers, and, learn from you all. If you got some advice, advice on equipment, advice on to stay creative, I want to hear it. I want to know it. So yeah, the reason behind it is because I want to help people. I want you who's just starting off, who just bought that camera, who just bought a crop sensor, or just bought that, Canon T7i or whatever it is, just a beginner camera, and you're wanting to learn the craft and study the craft, and just want to know that you're not alone out there. That's what this is for, to help you stay encouraged. I'm going to be that guy that's in your ear, continuing to give you advice and encouragement to have you keep pushing in the world. Because again, I don't care if it's hundreds of photographers in my circle. I want each and every one of us to succeed. There's no such thing as competition to me. That's just my belief. I could be wrong, but guess what? I don't care. So that's the reason behind it. That's where the name came from. Shootin The Breeze came from, and that's one of the reasons behind it. Just to encourage people. I want you to feel that you're not alone, and that that you have some place to go to share your thoughts and to listen to or talk to someone that's starting off. And even though I've been doing it for, 6+ years, I'm still learning. I still have questions. And so we can learn from each other at this point. I'm no one special. I'm no one important in that aspect, right? I don't have a big name, but I do believe that my time is going to come. I will put that in the universe. I do believe that my full-time employer right now would not be my full-time employer years from now. That's my goal, and I just believe with hard work, prayer, and faith, it's going to happen. So yeah. What to expect on Shootin The Breeze? What would it be about? Again, it will be about anything that you all want to talk about. I take suggestions and some content that is still in the works, subjects. But again, we would talk about a lot of things. Pricing, which, that's the number one thing that nobody wants to talk about. And even if it is that you want to talk about it, you don't know because different markets vary. But we can come up with an idea together to know what you're charging, that you don't want to undervalue yourself. That's one thing that I started off. I'm like, you get 10 photos, $75. Like, what? No, stop it now. Don't do it. Stop. It's too less. You put in too much money, time, investment, skills to charge $75. Not even for a mini session. I'm sorry. Stop it. Stop now. You have to value yourself. You have to know your worth. It's like a relationship. Know what you're worth. Don't settle for less. You want the best. Nothing less. Yeah. Stop it now. Do not charge $75. I'm sorry for families listening or models or whoever who is not in the photography world. I'm sorry, but no, that is not enough. You have to charge more. That's one thing we would talk about. And I'll try to get, somebody in here to bring up more about it because I still struggle with pricing, but I know I will not charge $75 for anything. I'm not pulling my camera out for $75 again, ever. No, I'm not doing it. Sorry. We'll talk about weddings. I actually have a wedding coming up. So we'll talk about that and my process for that. And, we'll talk about different things. We'll talk about wedding photography. We'll talk about street photography. We'll talk about landscape photography. We'll talk about portraits. And again, we'll have some interviews. Everything's still in the works. This is our very first episode, but everything still is in the works. I want to reach out to YouTubers and successful photographer YouTubers, and I put quote unquotes, no shots fired, because I do respect them and I do admire their work. There's some very good people. So yeah, I would try to reach out to different photographers across the country, if not world, because I told you I have high expectations for this. This is not something that I want to have local and just have a couple listeners. Like, I'm really thinking like to the sky with this, and I'm gonna keep going until I have no breath in my lungs. That's what to expect out of this. I mean, I'm gonna try to be consistent as possible to give you something to turn to. But yeah, interviews. We'll talk about equipment. I mean, I know it's kind of hard. Well, excuse me. It's kind of hard because it's audio. But we will talk about equipment. What's your favorite equipment? What this equipment does? What's this lens for? What lens would you use for this scenario? We'll talk about all of that. That's what it's for. Or if it's something that you want to talk about, hey, you're more than welcome to be a guest of this show. Just reach out to us and we will make it happen, So yeah, if you're a photographer or a model, all of those, I want to get the model's perspective from the photography world. Not just photographers, talk about models and, and what they expect from a photographer and what's the reason they got behind modeling. Because again, we're all somebody. We're all somebody special. We're all beautiful in and outside in our own special ways, right? So I want to get all of that. I want to capture all of that. And that's just one thing that we can talk about. You know, sky's the limit. Should I put it like that? So photographers and models, again, if you want to collab and be a part of the Shootin The Breeze podcast, email me. It's so much in the works, and I'm just excited, as you can tell, right? I'm excited. I'm finally following through something I said I was going to do. No, I'm not that big of a procrastinator. But, I'm excited. I feel like regardless if it's one person, two persons, 10, hundreds, thousands, like I'm going to be happy. Either way it go, I'm doing this for me, just to talk, just to get it out there. My wife knows so much, and I start talking about aperture and all of this, what? So I just want to keep it raw. I want this podcast to be as raw as possible, like when we shoot it raw. So I want to keep it raw. I don't want too many scripts. I just want to be real. I want to keep it shutter speed 100, right? ISO 100. We don't want all that grain and all that stuff. But yeah, that's a little insider joke. So yeah, reach out to me if you want to be a part of it. So, thank you. And I am excited. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for being a part of this. And until next time, my friends, keep shooting.
Shootin The Breeze Podcast is in partnership with Sunshine Events, where we turn your dreams into reality. If you would like to be a part of Shootin The Breeze Podcast, please email us at shootinthebreezepodcast@yahoo.com. And please be sure to follow us on our Instagram page. I am _Pierre Andre.